When I opened the first box from that haul and saw stack after stack of cash along with official documents, my heart almost stopped. $15,000 to transport 10 boxes of business documents from Chicago to the Mexican border. I should have been suspicious. But when you're desperate, when your daughter needs expensive medications and the bank threatens to take your truck, you make choices you never imagined making. And it was exactly at that moment, with that box open in front of me, that I realized I had gotten myself into the biggest mess of my life. My name is Robert Mendez. I'm 42 years old, and I've been a truck driver for 18 years. I know every pothole, every dangerous curve, every truck stop between Chicago and the Texas border. I always prided myself on being an honest professional, delivering cargo on time and never getting involved in anything suspicious. But that was before March 2024, before my Freightliner's engine seized and left me with a debt of $65,000. To make matters worse, my daughter Julia, only 10 years old, was diagnosed with a rare disease that requires imported medications. Each box costs $3,000 and she needs one per month. My wife Aina worked as a hairstylist, but with the economic downturn, the salon where she worked closed. We were drowning. It was on one of those bad days, when I was at the Chicago freight terminal trying to get any haul that paid decently, that the man approached me. It was a Thursday afternoon. The sun was already setting, and I was about to give up and go home empty-handed once again. He appeared out of nowhere, wearing an impeccable gray suit that contrasted with the dirty and noisy terminal environment. White hair neatly combed, designer glasses, appearance of a successful businessman. He had that manner of someone accustomed to getting what they want. "Robert Mendez?" he asked, extending his hand with a courteous smile. I was surprised he knew my name. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" I replied, shaking his hand. The grip was firm, confident. "My name is Marcos Augusto Ferreira. I'm a businessman and I need a trustworthy truck driver for a special job." He paused, evaluating me with his gaze. "I heard you're one of the most reliable in the business. Punctual, discreet, professional." That made me suspicious. How did this well-dressed man know about me? But the words trustworthy and special job also meant something every struggling trucker knows: above average payment. "What kind of job?" I asked, trying to sound casual despite growing expectation. "I need to transport 10 boxes of business documents from Chicago to the Mexican border. They're sensitive papers, important contracts, nothing illegal, but extremely confidential. The deadline is tight, 3 days maximum. And I'm willing to pay $15,000 for the delivery." $15,000. My heart raced. It was almost double what I'd earn on a normal haul for that distance. With that money, I could pay for Julia's medications for 5 months and still make a down payment to renegotiate the truck debt. "Why so much?" I asked, because something inside me was still functioning properly. For that route, the normal rate would be $8,000 at most. Marcos smiled, as if expecting that question. "Because I need absolute discretion and guaranteed punctuality. These boxes can't go through any routine inspection. Not because they contain anything illegal, but because they're documents from an ongoing billion-dollar negotiation. If information leaks before time, my company loses the deal. You understand the need for commercial confidentiality, don't you?" The explanation made sense. I had transported valuable cargo before, merchandise that needed discretion. But something deep in my mind still screamed that this was wrong. Problem was, the voice of necessity screamed louder. "And how do I know you'll pay me?" I asked, trying to seem professional. $5,000 up front now, $10,000 on delivery." He pulled a thick envelope from his jacket's inner pocket and handed it to me. "Count it if you want." I opened the envelope and there were $50 bills, brand new, smelling like a bank, $5,000 in my hand. I thought about Aina at home, calculating bills, thought about Julia taking those bitter medications. Thought about the bank manager calling me every day demanding payment. When do you need me to leave? I asked, and at that moment, I knew I had already made the decision. Tomorrow, Friday, at 6 in the morning. I'll bring the boxes to your truck at 5:30. Do you have a safe place to keep the vehicle tonight? I do. I leave it in a guarded parking lot near my house. Perfect. He handed me a business card with just a phone number. This is my contact. When you arrive at the border, call me. I'll give you the exact delivery address. Any questions? I should have asked 1,000 questions. Should have asked for more details, demanded a contract, verified his identity. But all I could say was, no, everything's clear. Excellent, Robert. I'm trusting you. He shook my hand again and left, disappearing among the parked trucks as mysteriously as he had appeared. I stood there, holding that envelope with $5,000, feeling a mixture of relief and unease. I called Aina immediately. Honey, I got a good haul. 15,000. I heard her sigh on the other end of the line, a sigh of relief and emotion. Thank God, Robert. When do you leave? Tomorrow morning. I'll be back Tuesday. Drive carefully, please. We need you here. I always drive carefully. I love you. But that night, I could barely sleep. On Friday, at 5:20 in the morning, I was already at the parking lot waiting. Marco showed up punctually at 5:30, driving a black van with tinted windows. He was accompanied by an assistant, a man about 40 years old, strong, who didn't say a single word while they loaded the 10 sealed cardboard boxes into my trailer. The boxes were heavy, but not excessively. Each must have weighed about 45 pounds. They were all sealed with brown duct tape and had handwritten labels. Business documents, confidential. Remember, Robert, Marco said as I closed the trailer. Absolute discretion. Don't stop in busy places. Avoid routine police checks. Don't comment about the cargo with anyone. They're just documents, but they're extremely valuable to my company. You got it. I know the route. I know where to stop. He handed me another smaller envelope. Here's $1,000 for fuel and expenses. The rest on delivery. Safe travels. And off I went, leaving Chicago at 6 in the morning on a Friday, heading toward the biggest mistake of my life. Or perhaps the biggest right decision, depending on how you look at it. The trip started smoothly. I took Interstate 55 South, which I knew like the back of my hand. The weather was good, traffic flowing. I put on my country music playlist and tried to relax. But something wouldn't leave me in peace. Maybe it was Marcus's insistence on discretion. Maybe it was the way that assistant looked at me, a look from someone who knew something I didn't know. Maybe it was just my conscience trying to warn me. When lunchtime came, I stopped at a truck stop I always stopped at, Helena's Diner. In a small town in Missouri, Mrs. Helena was a 65-year-old woman who had owned that diner for decades. She knew practically every trucker who made that route. Robert's son, she greeted me with that maternal smile as always. It's been so long. How's the family? They're well, Mrs. Helena. Julie is in treatment, but we're managing. I ordered a chicken plate with rice and beans, my favorite there. While I was eating, Mrs. Helena came to sit across from me. She had that way of noticing when something was wrong. You have a strange look on your face, Robert. Did something happen? No, Mrs. Helena, just tired. I couldn't look her in the eyes. She had that mother's way of seeing through your lies. What cargo are you hauling this time? Documents? Company paperwork? She looked at me with that expression that said she didn't believe me. Be careful, okay, son? These are difficult times. People are doing crazy things for money. Don't do anything you'll regret later. Her words kept echoing in my head. I paid for lunch, thanked her, and went back to the truck. I was almost leaving when I looked back at the closed trailer. Mrs. Helena's words, the uneasiness that wouldn't leave me alone, the value that was too high for the haul. Everything started making a deafening noise in my head. I stopped the truck, got out, looked around to make sure no one was watching, and then I opened the trailer. The 10 boxes were there, neatly organized, sealed. I grabbed one that was on top, the one with the number 3 written by hand. I took a deep breath and broke the duct tape. What I saw inside made my blood run cold. They weren't just documents. There were documents, yes, hundreds of them, but there were also bundles and bundles of cash. $50 and $100 bills, organized in stacks held together with rubber bands. There must have been at least $300,000 just in that box. And there were flash drives, external hard drives, sealed envelopes with official government stamps. I grabbed one of the documents from the top and read quickly. It was a spreadsheet from a construction company with absurd amounts, columns with politicians' names, percentages, dates. Another document was a public bidding contract with erasures and handwritten notes in the margins. My God, these weren't ordinary business documents. They were evidence, proof of a gigantic corruption scheme. And I was transporting all of this to the border. I closed the box quickly, my hands trembling. I leaned against the truck, trying to breathe, trying to process what I had just discovered. Marcos wasn't an ordinary businessman. He was fleeing. He was taking evidence of a crime out of the country before the police caught him. And I was the idiot who was helping. I got in the truck and sat there, paralyzed. My mind was working at a frantic pace. I had 3 options, and all were terrible. Option 1. Continue the trip, deliver the boxes, receive the remaining $10,000, and pretend I never saw anything. With $15,000 total, I could breathe financially for a few months. But I would become an accomplice to a crime. If the police found out, and they eventually would, I would go to prison. My family would be without me. Julia would be without her father. Option 2. Call the police now, report everything, hand over the boxes and cooperate with the investigation. Do the right thing. But lose the $15,000. Worse, probably have to return the $5,000 I had already received. Go home empty-handed, with bills piling up. With the bank about to take my truck, unable to buy Julia's medications. Option 3. Simply disappear with the boxes. Take all that money that was in there and vanish. But I wasn't that kind of person. And even if I were, Marcos certainly had noted my license plate, knew my full name, probably knew where I lived. People involved in corruption schemes of this level don't leave loose ends. I called Aina. My voice must have been strange because she noticed immediately. Robert, what happened? Did something happen? Aina, I didn't even know how to begin. I think I got myself into trouble. I told her everything. The man in the suit, the money that was too easy, the boxes I had opened. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Robert, she said finally. And her voice was firm despite me realizing she was fighting not to cry. You know what you need to do. Aina, it's $15,000. It's Julia's medication for 5 months. What if you go to prison? What if you become a criminal? What good are 5 months of medication if Julia is without her father for years? If she grows up knowing her father chose dirty money instead of doing the right thing, she was right. I knew she was right, but it hurt too much to accept. I'm going to have to return the money he already gave me, I said, feeling a weight in my chest. We'll figure it out, honey. We always have. Do the right thing. For us. For Julia. For yourself. I hung up the phone and stayed there for another 10 minutes, stuck between right and easy, until I made the decision. I went back to Mrs. Helena's diner. Mrs. Helena, I need to use your phone to make an important call. My cell phone is out of battery. It was a lie, but I didn't want them to trace my number. Of course, son. Use the diner's phone over there. I dialed 911. When they answered, I asked to speak with the federal police. I explained I had information about transporting evidence of a corruption crime. They transferred me to a detective. Hello, this is Detective Enrique Silva, Federal Police. Who am I speaking with? I took a deep breath. My name is Robert Mendez. I'm a truck driver, and I think I'm transporting evidence of a corruption scheme. There was a pause. Mr. Robert, Can you describe what you're transporting and where it came from? I told everything. From the meeting with Marcos at the terminal to the moment I opened the box. I described the contents, gave all the details I could remember. The detective listened to me in silence, only asking a few specific questions. Mr. Robert, where are you at this moment? Truck stop in Missouri, on I-55. I stopped for lunch. Perfect. Don't leave there. Don't touch anything else. I'm sending a team immediately. Should arrive in an hour, maybe less. You made the right choice contacting us. Detective, I asked, my voice faltering a bit. Am I going to be arrested? Technically, I agreed to transport this without knowing. If you cooperate completely, as you're doing now, no. You were deceived, and you're correcting the mistake. But I'll be honest, you'll need to return the money you received and will probably testify in the trial. It'll be complicated, but there will be no charges against you. That was the longest hour of my life. I stayed there at the stop, drinking coffee after coffee, watching the truck, waiting for the police to arrive. Mrs. Helena noticed something serious was happening and kept me company, talking about trivial things to distract me. Mrs. Helena, I said at one point, have you ever done something you knew would cost you dearly, but it was the right thing to do? She looked at me with those wise eyes and gave a sad smile. Several times, son. And you know what I learned? That the regret of doing the wrong thing lasts a lifetime. The regret of doing the right thing only lasts until you see the result of the good you caused. When the federal police arrived, 3 cars came. Detective Enrique Silva got out of the first one, a black man with a serious appearance but understanding look. He was in his mid-40s, athletic build, impeccable uniform. Mr. Robert? He extended his hand. Detective Enrique Silva, thank you for your cooperation. Detective. I shook his hand, still nervous. Let's see these boxes. He signaled, and the agents accompanied me to the truck. When they opened the boxes one by one, I saw the officers' expressions changing. They photographed everything, separated the documents, counted the money. Detective Silva was holding one of the spreadsheets and shaking his head. Mr. Robert, do you have any idea what you just handed us? This is what we've been investigating for 8 months. Embezzlement of public funds, overcharging on construction projects, bribes. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. This Marcos Augusto Ferreira has been on our wanted list for 2 weeks. He must have been trying to leave the country with this evidence. I just wanted to earn honest money to pay for my daughter's medications, I said, and felt tears wanting to come out. I didn't know anything. The detective put his hand on my shoulder. I know. And you made the right choice when you found out. Many people in your position would have continued. You chose honesty even knowing the price. Detective, will I have to return the $5,000 he gave me? Yes, but not today. When the case progresses, we'll need you to officially return it, as it's part of the evidence. You'll also need to give formal testimony. You'll probably be called as a witness when the case goes to trial. What about Marcos? Are you going to arrest him? With this evidence in hand, we'll get arrest warrants for him and everyone involved. You gave us the missing piece of the puzzle, Mr. Robert. I spent the next 4 hours there at the stop, giving testimony, signing documents, answering questions. The federal police seized the boxes, photographed my truck, collected all the contact information I had for Marcos. Before leaving, Detective Silva called me aside. Mr. Robert, I know you're in a difficult financial situation. I can't give you the whole money because it would be irregular, but I can give you some information. There's a protection and compensation program for witnesses who suffer financial loss by cooperating with corruption investigations. It won't be immediate. It'll take a few months until the case moves forward, but you may qualify. I appreciate it, Detective. But it wasn't because of compensation that I called you. It was because it was the right thing to do. He smiled. I know. And that's exactly why people like you deserve to be compensated. America needs more people who choose right over easy. Here's my card. Anything, call me. I went home that Friday night. Without money, without a haul, but with a clear conscience. Aina received me at the door and hugged me tight without saying anything. She knew I had done the right thing, even though it was the hardest thing. In the following months, the story exploded in the media. Marcos Augusto Ferreira was arrested trying to cross the border 3 days later. They discovered he was the accountant for a scheme that embezzled almost $400 million from public works. Dozens of politicians and businessmen were indicted. I testified as a witness. My name was kept confidential by the court for my protection. And 6 months later, I received an official letter informing me that I had been approved for the Witness Compensation Program. I received $25,000, more than the $15,000 I was going to earn with the illegal haul. But the most important thing happened on a Sunday afternoon, 3 months after everything. I was at home with Julia in my lap. She was already better with the treatment we managed to maintain with a lot of sacrifice, but also with help from donations the community made when some neighbors learned of our situation. "Dad," she asked me with those big curious eyes, "is it true you helped the police arrest bad guys?" Aina had told her a simplified version of the story, appropriate for her age. "It's true, sweetheart." "Were you scared?" "I was very scared. But you know what I learned? That doing the right thing doesn't mean doing the easy thing. Sometimes the right thing is the hardest, the one that hurts the most, the one that costs the most. But in the end, it's the only thing that lets you sleep in peace." She hugged me. "You're my hero, Dad." And at that moment, holding my daughter in my arms, I knew I had made the right choice. Not because of the compensation money that came later, not for recognition, but because I could look my daughter in the eyes and be an example of integrity for her. Today, whenever I pass by Mrs. Helena's diner, I stop for coffee and conversation. And whenever a rookie trucker is there, she points to me and says, "See that one there? That's Robert. He's the type who chooses right over easy. Be like him." The road teaches many lessons, but the most important one I learned on that Friday in March 2024 was this: your reputation, your honesty, your ability to sleep peacefully at night, all of that is worth more than any amount of money, because money you can earn again. But character, once lost, is almost impossible to recover. And every time I look at my daughter growing up healthy, every time I drive the roads of America with my conscience clear, every time other truckers greet me with respect, I know that was the most expensive and most valuable decision I ever made in my life. Because in the end, the biggest haul you can transport isn't cargo, isn't merchandise, isn't documents or money, it's your own honesty. And that cargo, you can't deliver to anyone. That one you carry with you for your entire lifetime. And I chose to carry mine with my head held high.